if you look at the first two Jax records, they were very much studio albums. It was kind of me in a studio with my producer, and I would go in, and the kind of production angle on those records was I would write a song, I'd bring it into the studio, I'd sit down, I'd play it at the piano, do the vocal, and we would build the band around the piano and the vocal, which is, I love working that way, especially, getting out of something corporate and sort of, deciding to do something that was kind of more on my own. It kind of gave me the power to let it be about the piano and the voice and sort of build a track that supported those two elements, and I think coming out of a very much like a kind of a democratic kind of sort of band environment, that became a really fun way to produce records. And I love those records as a result, but I felt like I'd done that twice, and that had been sort of the way I'd produced records for a number of years. So when I got through kind of the initial stage of demoing and writing songs for this record and thinking originally that maybe some of what became the demos would be the full record, and I was approaching it similarly, like kind of, in a studio with a producer, putting down the piano, then building the track kind of in reverse, I found myself sort of longing for the alternative, longing for this, more of this, let's get into a band practice space. I have these songs. I'm really proud of these songs. Let's learn how to play them together, and let's see what doing that, gets us. And so myself and Bob, my guitar player, and Jay, my drummer, we went into this amazing little spot outside of Joshua Tree National Park, this house, and we put up all our gear, and we just started learning how to play the songs, and at that point, it was, guitar, piano, and drums, and needless to say, it found us, wanting for low end. So Bob kind of moved over to the bass for a lot of those sessions, and we learned a lot of the songs as a three-piece with Bob playing bass. And we brought in Jim Scott, who is a notoriously great recording engineer, especially when it relates to full bands. He did the Chili Peppers records. He did the Wilco records. He engineered Tom Petty's Wildflowers album. He did these albums that were staples for me growing up and in the modern realm. So we reached out to him to produce and engineer the record, and we went into his studio. Basically we got all the basic tracks there. Actually did some of the overdubs with my old producer Jim Wirt, who had done most of my records up to that point. Got to kind of the finished stage of the record. It was close. It was like right there, but there was still, there was just still this little spark missing from it. And enter Rob Cavallo, another, mind-blowingly talented producer, and spent kind of the last phase of the record in a studio with Rob and some of his guys, and just sort of took everything that we had worked on and just pushed it over the edge, and actually did one more new song for the record, a song called Release Me. So that's a long story about where the record came from. But I think for me what it represents, at least in my career, is sort of what I would say is the most humble approach to recording that I've been involved with so far. And I think you hear it, it's an album about the songs. It's not about my voice, or it's not about the piano. It's really about each individual song kind of just standing in a very, I don't want to say stark, but or even underproduced, but just right. There's not an overage of anything on the record. It's kind of minimalist in its approach.